Meanwhile, the Johannesburg fresh produce market has been the backbone of the city's informal food economy, supplying thousands of street traders, small retailers and township vendors who depend on it to keep fresh produce affordable and accessible. But the market is under growing pressure with aging infrastructure, unreliable cold storage and governance instability raises concern about its long-term viability. Senior Lecturer for Development Studies at the University of Pretoria, Marc Wegerif, joins us now for greater perspective. Marc, thanks so much for your time today. I guess let's start with the bigger picture here, right? Your research points out a sharp contrast. South Africa has high agricultural production, but high food insecurity. Walk me through that disconnect.
Right. Well, first of all, recent studies have shown that more than 60% of our households in South Africa are food insecure to some extent. More than half the population simply can't afford a healthy diet. And that's got serious consequences for the country and the people who are affected by that. And that, of course, is alongside a highly developed agricultural sector producing high-quality products, including for export and so on. I think the Johannesburg market and the other municipal fresh produce markets like it are a kind of meeting point between these two, because you get the best quality fresh produce coming from the biggest farms, as well as from small farms, emerging black farmers and so on, coming into the Johannesburg market, the trucks arriving normally overnight. And then you've got thousands of street traders, individuals, along with the supermarkets and your traditional grocery stores and so on, coming in and buying there, and then distributing and retailing throughout the province and beyond as well. So if you go there 5 o'clock any morning, it's a bustling place of thousands of people, and you can go there. If people don't know, it's a good place to go and pick up very affordable, good quality fresh produce. So go down there if you've got a party and you want to stock up or something, But this is creating livelihoods for thousands of street traders who then sell on this fresh produce at very affordable prices, throughout the province. And of course, affordability of fruit and vegetables is so essential to healthy, balanced diets.
And key to the system there, as you mentioned, are the informal traders, the hawkers on the side of the road, the hawkers in the middle of Johannesburg CBD, selling these fruits and fruits and veggie producers at an affordable price. Well, usually, I guess, lower than the supermarkets. Just walk me further into their role, right, in terms of food insecurity and addressing those issues, especially when it comes to affordability, Marc.
Right. Well, first, let's also just say, the Johannesburg fresh produce market moves more than 1.3 million tons of fruit and vegetables every year. That's valued at over 11 billion rand last year. So this is substantial. And more than half of that is being sold through this informal sector that we're talking about. Now, we've been doing price tracking, and I should say this is supported by the DSTI NRF Center of Excellence in Food Security. And we've tracked prices over a 2-year period. And in that time, just to make it real and give you an example, well, across 10 items we tracked, the street traders were always more affordable than the supermarkets and the formal sector prices that we see from Stats SA and so on. And to make it real, take a tomato, for example, that was selling on average per kilo over the 2 years at 10 Rand 44 per kilo in the Johannesburg fresh produce markets and other markets. The farmer's getting about 9 Rand 12, 9 Rand 15 of that after commission and so on. But then the formal sector was selling it at 27 Rand 64 a kilo. So a very big markup from it being available at 10 Rand 44 to in the shops, we're paying 27, 28 Rand for the same kilo of tomatoes. Now in comes the street traders, and we tracked their prices, and they were selling over that period at 18 Rand 2 cents a kilo. So you can save yourself 9 Rand 63 per kilo of tomatoes if you were buying from the street trader over the whole 2-year period compared to buying in the formal sector outlets. That's a very substantial saving. It means the formal sector is more than 50% more expensive than the street trader. And of course, there are other factors that make the street traders very good for food accessibility, like the location where they sell. The woman on the corner of your street in Ivory Park or wherever it is, or even the guys with the trolleys coming to your house, or selling to you at the taxi rank at the window of the taxi, the banana, the apple, and so on. And again, even in those small quantities, coming in per kilo substantially lower than the supermarkets. That is a big contribution to making fruit and vegetables more accessible. And of course, it's a wider economic contribution in the province when we're talking about the scale of that industry. Those hawkers moving 12 billion at least plus their markups. That's a substantial part of the economy in the province.
Mark, I'm wondering what the share of market share looks like between the street traders and the supermarkets. I can imagine with supermarkets having more cash flow, more revenue streams, they are able to buy more produce and get it onto their shelves. Does that not perhaps skew price stability when it comes to, I guess, buying those products?
Well, one of the things that's happening is that there's been a move. I mean, the supermarkets traditionally used to always buy from these public municipal markets as well. They've moved over the last couple of decades to more buying through their own direct supply chains, as they've also consolidated with fewer, larger distribution centers and so on. So what's happening there is that it's becoming harder and harder also for a small farmer, including our emerging black farmers, to supply there. Because if you've got to supply a ShopRite or Pick and Pay distribution center, they want massive quantities, very consistent, they have strict quality requirements and so on. Whereas in the municipal market, there's a much more open system, which although black farmers do complain they're not getting as good a price as the big farmers, and there's an issue there, they can sell that. They can go with I've talked to farmers in Limpopo, putting a sack of chilies, for example, on the back of a truck, along with other goods, going even all the way to Epping in Cape Town, and still managing to sell it through that municipal market at a profit. So it is still accessible. As we see the concentration in the supermarkets and through buying through their supply chains, they can use their buying power to put a lot of pressure onto the farmer to give them lower prices. And that is a serious problem for farmers. And the Competition Commission also pointed out in its report published last year that without the option of the fresh produce markets, the farmers are going to face, if they don't have somewhere else to sell, then they really are beholden to these supermarkets. On the other side, the buyer, if they don't have the street trader down the corner or the independent grocer, down the road, then we end up having to go to the supermarkets. Yeah. But you asked also about the share. The Competition Commission also estimated that of all our fruit and vegetables sort of produced and sold in South Africa, the municipal fresh produce markets are moving about 40 to 50%. So 40 to 50% of the total market at this point. It is a declining share. And I think we've got to be careful of that. If it goes too low, then the viability of the markets, could be affected. And that's partly why we're saying, look, we need to recognize the value of these public markets, both for our farmers, for our wider economy, and for our retailers, and for the consumer, who then has a more, greater diversity of options. And therefore, we need to invest in those markets. We need to ring fence the income they generate. They generate a lot of income. As I said, Joburg, almost 12 billion last year. 5% of that is straight to the coffers of the market, which is 100% owned by the municipality. So unfortunately, there have been cases where municipalities see these as cash cows, and we need to rather see them as a key part of our local economy and food system. Ring fence that money and make sure it's reinvested in the markets. Even invest more money in capex and so on, so that because we can see the economic benefit of such an investment in public market infrastructure like that. And then sustain a situation where there is greater competition, both for the farmers and also for the consumers at the end. And if we appreciate the role of that informal sector, stop harassing that informal sector, enable it, put up better infrastructure. Why don't we have more local markets? Why not, designate trading spaces even in every street where there can be a street trader? So it doesn't have to be out of control. Street traders themselves would like better infrastructure, better sanitation facilities. They also worry about health, safety for them and for their consumers and so on.
All right, Marc.
Work together,
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop you there. Really interesting insights. I do wish we had more time to chat. Let's leave it there. Again, appreciate your insights. Now, that was Marc Wegerif, Senior Lecturer for Development Studies at the University of Pretoria.